Call this meeting of the Ag and Natural Resources Subcommittee of the House of Representatives to order. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representatives Cochran, Darby, here. Hawford, here. Hulsey, here. Hurt, Potts, here. Reedy, here. Shaw, here. Chairman Todd. Present. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Are there any personal orders of today? Any announcements? Okay, I'll mention that the Division of Natural Areas, which is part of the Tennessee State Park System, is a division that leads the authority regarding the location and ecology of Tennessee's rare species, with experts in conservation biology, botany, zoology, ecology, natural resources management, and geographic information systems. The division's professionals focus their efforts on monitoring, conservation, restoration, and management of Tennessee's native species and plant communities. Furthermore, the data collected and maintained by the division are used by individuals, companies, and public agencies as part of the environmental permitting and review process. So just wanted to bring that to mind as one of those divisions that not necessarily always in the public eye, but they do a lot of good work behind the scenes. We will start now with our calendar. We've got a couple of things. As we get to them, we will move around a little bit depending on when folks come in. But we'll start out with item number 1 by Representative Powers. This is House Bill 90. Do I have a motion? We have a motion. We have a second. Representative Powers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. Presently, the Federal Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation, and Enforcement, they regulate surface mining in the state of Tennessee. Of the 23 states with surface mining, Tennessee is the only one without a state-regulated program. So in 2018, I sponsored the Primacy and Reclamation Act of Tennessee, directing the governor to state oversight of the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act, frequently referred to as primacy. The General Assembly voted to adopt the act and is now published as Public Chapter 839. The 2018 Act laid the foundation for the state to obtain primacy and moved us toward establishing a state rather than a federal surface mining program. Since that time, however, the administration sought an informal review of the 2018 Act from the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation, and the feedback is clear. Some changes must be made in order for Tennessee to receive primacy. To receive primacy, the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation must determine in their sole discretion that 1, our program is at least as stringent as federal law, and 2, that the state has the financial capability to administer and operate the program. To advance the goal of the 2018 Act, this bill will incorporate the feedback received by OSMRE by aligning the program more closely to the federal SMACRA or surface mining statute. This alignment is most efficient and expedient path to the best position Tennessee can get to receive approval and maintain a state surface coal mining program. With that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
Thank you, Chairman Powers. And I believe we do have an amendment. If I understand, this amendment makes the bill.
Yes.
And, can you give us the drafting code on that? I have 4923.
Sorry. Should have done that to begin with. And
we have a motion and a second on amendment number 1 with drafting code 4923. Just if you can confirm that, so we know we're on the right one.
Okay. 4923. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We've heard an explanation, I believe, of the amendment, and we will continue discussion in a moment. We'll go ahead and get the amendment on the bill. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendment number 1 goes on the bill. Representative, you have anything else to add to that?
No, I'll be happy to take any questions, though, if any committee has any.
Any questions for the sponsor? We have a question called on the bill. Without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 90. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 90, as amended, moves on to full Ag Committee.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee.
Next on our calendar, we have House Bill 813 by Representative Lafferty. Do I have a motion? Motion. We have a motion and a second. Representative Lafferty, you are recognized on House Bill 813.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first off, my apologies to the committee. I've not been able to get around and discuss this with folks like I had hoped to. Some of you may remember it, however, from last year. We've got the Food Freedom Bill is coming back to open up opportunities for folks that wish to try and make a living. If they've got some culinary skills, wish to exercise those skills, they can use third-party vendors to distribute their products. Oh, sorry, excuse me.
We do have an amendment, I believe, on this bill, drafting code 5403.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
I assume that's pretty significant. Motion on the amendment. We have a motion. We have a second on the amendment. We'll go ahead and vote on that, and then we'll get an explanation from you. All in favor of amendment number 1, drafting code 5403, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendment number 1 goes on the bill. So you're recognized, sir.
Thank you for that. The amendment, as I recall, takes care of some language that pertain to who it is that's producing it, where it's produced, items like that, so that any consumer, any end user knows exactly where this product's coming from. And you'll have to forgive me. It's been a little while since I looked over this. But I believe that's where we're at. The bill is as simple as allowing folks to make and sell food through a third-party vendor. Right now, you can sell it at a farmer's market, but you've got to be standing there doing it, which takes time. And if you've got the ability to turn out more product and not be standing on the front sales line, by all means, let's generate some dollars in this state. Let's see. With that, I'll take any questions, if anybody's got any questions.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor. And thank you for bringing this. I've been a little reluctant in past years of not making sure that there are some regulations in anything we consume, because, you know, there's not only the fact that it could have some kind of disease, but the chemicals. My experience have been, you know, if you plant certain crops and spray chemicals, there's so many years you need to wait before you start planting any kind of food to consume it, because it all gets involved in the soil and in the chemical. I guess my question to you is, this probably will do well, but at any point in time, will there be any way we could regulate this? Say if you get a bunch of growers, people growing stuff. A lot of people already grow, but more people that don't go to farmers markets and all. How would we contain this or keep it in order if it got to that point, if that makes any sense to you?
Representative?
Make sure I'm on board with you. You're talking about, it sounds like farmers producing the product.
Yes, sir.
Or producing, all right. I don't know that we're addressing that here. That's the source material for the folks that are going to be turning out the finished product. This bill doesn't address farming practices or things like that. This is more about what is it that you're doing, or now, and I hate using this term, the government allows you to do in your home, as far as taking materials that have been grown on the farm, turning it into something, and selling a finished product.
Representative Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not necessarily against your legislation. I'm just trying to get things in focus. I know I was told, I go to this Urban Ag Conference every year in Iowa, and they talk to us about this very same thing, food safety. And they said, if you got property that I've got some property that I rented to farmers to grow corn, cotton, all that, with those chemicals in that soil, don't go back. If you don't re-rent that property next year to the farmer, don't you run and start planting a lot of, food on it, garden stuff, because the chemical is still in the ground. So you want to wait so long or plant beets or something to pull it out before you do that. And I guess I'm just wondering, have any consideration, I know it's not in this legislation, but have any consideration been given to that type thing, so that when these people are planting these crops and these foods, they don't run out and do it too soon and have something with chemicals in it. That's kind of where I am. If you could speak to that, if you can't, I understand.
Representative Lafferty.
Not being that familiar with farming practices, I can't really speak to crop rotation, things like that. This bill is addressing again, the finished product. We aren't reaching all the way back to the farm. We're just trying to start at the kitchen and go forward from there.
Chairman Cochran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Lafferty, I just wanted to say I'm a big fan of the bill. I like any kind of legislation that introduces more freedom into the marketplace. And as long as the consumers are informed on the decision that they're making, like I said, I think more freedom is always a good thing. Not only does it create an opportunity for the producers of the products to make more money and to be enriched through that, but honestly, you're enriching the consumers as well, because you're giving them access to products they otherwise may not have access to, from folks who may not want to do all the licensures and that type of thing. But like I said, as long as your consumers are informed of the products that they're purchasing, I think it's a great bill. I appreciate you bringing it.
Thank you for that.
Chairman Lafferty, anything to add to that?
I don't. I do have someone here that is an expert on this topic. If we could go out of session and maybe give her a minute. She made the effort to come here. And
I was
believe
going to
we've got her
ask
on
you if
the
that
list.
was, if they needed to, or if it was just in case they were needed for, Chairman Halford had a question. Do you want to ask it now or after testimony? You're recognized. Okay. Without objection, we'll go out of session and we'll hear from a witness. So we'll recess for a few minutes, go out of session. Please just state your name and who you're with, and then feel free to give us your comments for 2 to 3 minutes.
Great. Honorable Representatives, thank you for having me today to speak on House Bill 813, which I also like to refer to as the Small Producers Food Freedom Bill. My name is Shawn Day. For the last 20 years, I've been the local Nashville chapter for the Weston Price Foundation. I've worked with Senator Frank Nicely on bringing many farmer-friendly bills like this one. I'm a great friend of the small farmer, and I very much appreciate the honor to speak to you. So today I'm going to address House Bill 813 to set your minds at ease. I guess you do know this bill did pass out of this committee last year, but unfortunately it ran out of time. The TDA and the Department of Health have worked with us, and they both approve of this bill. It's basically the same as the older bill, except it's a couple of restrictions have been taken out. What the bill would basically do is expand markets for homemade food producers, muffins, cakes, pies. It's very simple, and things like sauerkraut and possibly salsas. It would increase the sales of these NTTCS foods. They're non-time temperature control for safety foods with minimal regulation and expense. It would expand, there's a huge demand for locally produced foods, as you know. It would increase access to the local foods for our state residents. Homemade foods also have a great track record for safety. There are 49 other states with these cottage food laws, some of which allow the sale of more foods than this bill would do, and the reports of illnesses attributed to producers operating under these laws are almost non-existent. So the bill will also keep more of the food dollar in the community, and it will enhance local economies. Under this bill, the TDA could investigate any reported food illnesses. Nothing in this bill impedes the state from investigating a foodborne illness outbreak. To address your concerns about packaging and safety, the bill does require the homemade food to have a label on it. And on the label, it would say the name of the producer, the home address, the telephone number. It would have the common or usual name of the homemade food, the ingredients of the homemade food, and then it would have a statement that says, you know, like a lot of them do, this product was produced at a private residence. It is exempt from state licensing and inspection. This product may contain allergens. So the label is fairly thorough on where it came from and what it contains if there's ever an issue. The current law does allow for the sale of non-potentially hazardous foods like this, the same definition of NTTCS foods, so long as the unlicensed producer doesn't have any full-time employees. This bill isn't changing anything all that much except expanding where the foods can be sold and allowing the producer to have full-time employees. I mean, why not? So just to remind you, this bill did pass out of the committee last year. I'd like to ask you to vote yes on this bill, which is now passed through the full Senate, and to enable home-based producers to make a better living and expanding their markets, as well as better meet the growing consumer demand for locally produced food. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Day? Seeing none, we'll go back into session. We appreciate you coming today.
Thank
We'll go
you.
back into session.
Thanks, sir.
Committee's back in session. Chairman Hawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and help me out with the part that covers meat and poultry and that kind of thing. Help me out. Is that can that be sold fresh, or does it have to be frozen, or and if it's sold fresh, how is it maintained so that it's safe for future consumption?
Chairman Lafferty?
With the time and temperature language that is in here, meat and poultry would not be something that would be covered by this bill.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Looks like we're ready to vote on House Bill 813 as amended. Oh, Chairman Lafferty?
I'm sorry, I said not covered. I should have said not included. We aren't looking to allow folks to have, use a term in the news, a wet market, if you will, to open it up to meat and poultry. We're not going to have folks slaughtering chickens, taking them to their grocery store for sale.
So it's kept in some kind of state where it's still, if it's fresh, that it's maintained, the temperature's maintained and all that kind of thing.
It would not be, under this bill, we would not be looking to sell meat and poultry.
Okay, I got you.
Thank you for that clarification. Representative Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did hear her say that there would be a label explaining where these products come from or what household or whatever. Oh, so that means if something were to happen, that person could contact that particular person who sold it to them.
Chairman Lafferty, you want to address that?
Yes, sir, that is correct. And not only that, but if there is nothing that stops. If there is an issue, there is nothing that stops the health department from going in and checking the place out where the product is coming from.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 813 as amended without objection. All in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The bill goes on to House Ag Full Committee, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you. I know I'm out of order, but my son and his friend, my son Tracy, I'm going to call his full name, Tracy Rundell Shaw, just entered the building, and of course with his friend Michelle. Tracy, he called himself on the radio the Baby Jock. And if you'd like to listen to him, you can listen to him on Saturday mornings on our radio station. And he thinks he's better than his dad. But I would like for the committee and
Welcome,
the audience to help me welcome them here today. All right. Thank you.
We'll send Representative Shaw a bill for that free advertisement then. Next on our agenda is item number 3, House Bill 1451 by Chairman Sexton. Do I have a motion? Motion. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Chairman Sexton, you are recognized. Check the microphone, please.
It says it's on.
It is now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The bill that I have today is a bill that addresses a need that I think that we are increasingly having issues with, and that is land purchases and agriculture in Tennessee, in America. And so what the purpose of this bill is to try to address the issues that we're facing. And we all know that at any time, foreign entities, if they own a great deal of land in Tennessee, or America that is, but we're just addressing Tennessee, of course, that at any time that they did not want to sow that or farm that they could hurt Tennessee and to some degree hold us hostage. So I think it's something that we have to address sooner or later, or it's going to be addressed for us. We see the hostility that's going on all around the world. Even in our own country, there's a division going on. So I think that we need to look at ways that we can address taking care of one of our most important products, and that's food. And the livelihood of Tennesseans and what we would do in case that we were to face a situation like this. So we all know that commerce is important and we need to be able to trade, but that trade does not need to be so one-sided that we are dependent. As we found out during COVID that China made almost all of our PPE, and we realized that we had to bring some of that back. We had to take care of our own. And so that's what the intent of the bill is to address the issue of how much land is foreign-owned in Tennessee, how much can be, and if we're going to take a look at it and see if we don't need more Tennesseans or Americans farming in our country. So that's just kind of the purpose, Chairman and Committee, of this bill, and I'll be glad to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chairman Sexton. I think there have been a number of concerns expressed by committee members in the past, and so we'll love to hear from them right now. Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Sponsor, let me see if I understand this. What you're saying is anyone from another country could not purchase farmland and farm here in the United States. Is that basically the principle we're getting to?
Chairman Sexton.
It would be the amount, and of course, I realize that there's a lot of questions to this, and I do understand the concerns that need to be worked out. It's not that they could not, but that it has to be appropriated in such a way that it does not have the larger part or a part that would devastate Tennessee and hold us hostage to foreign entities, foreign companies, or foreign landholders.
Representative Shaw.
Well, I remember our discussion last night. Your resolution made the Bible state book, and that state book says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Love your enemies, all of the above. So now we're going to make this Bible our state book and then turn around and turn our neighbors away.
Chairman Sexton.
The Bible also says a folding of the hands and bowing the head causes one to not have anything to eat. We have to put our hands to the plow, and we have to plow the ground, and we have to sow. There's not a place or a time that you can't find that there's been battles and disagreements. And nations align with one another. Sometimes they're our ally, sometimes they're not. So I can't love my enemy that wants to do me harm. That's the reason that we have laws that protect us from one another. I can still love that individual, but doesn't mean that I have to comply to their agenda that is going to hurt my family and my community and my neighbors. So I think it would be very unbecoming of us to not take care of one another in our own land.
Representative Shaw.
Well, we won't get into that running discussion about the Bible today. This is not the time. But I think when I think about community development, and when I think about the growth of this country, and I think about the fact that, let's just use any country. Let's just say China. China might want to bring industry here, but would they bring industry here if we didn't let them buy land to farm if they wanted to? I mean, would that not be a conflict?
Chairman
It would.
Sexton.
Thank you, Chairman. It would be, yes.
Representative Shaw.
Well, that was my question. I mean, if if, either I didn't hear your answer, that if, say, China wanted to make car tires in America, we'd probably welcome that plant because it would probably bring good jobs, what have you. And I'm just using China, it may be any country. But then if a farmer in China wanted to come here and purchase property, and we deny that farmer the opportunity to purchase the property, would that not be a conflict of interest?
It
Chairman
could,
Sexton.
I'm sorry, Chairman. Yes, thank you. It could be, but at the same time, I think you would agree that we wouldn't allow China to come here and buy Tennessee. And that's the purpose that I'm trying to bring attention to, is we don't want to be owned by China. If we do, we might as well sell out and call it the People's Republic of the United States. We have to preserve our country, our state, and I'm a person that believes in states' rights, so I think we have that right and obligation to look and see who our neighbors are, whether or not that we're aligned with them, and yes, whether or not that we would allow them to purchase our property. So I think it ought to be left up to the state and to Tennesseans and not the federal government. They're making those deals all the time. As we see, the President of the United States alone shut down a pipeline, killed tens of thousands of jobs, killed infrastructure. So we see that there's things that are going on, and I think we as Tennesseans need to stand up and make an effort to see if we can do something.
Representative Shaw?
Last comment, not question, but last comment. I think if we want to separate ourselves from the federal government, we ought to stop taking their money, is what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Shaw. Representative Halford? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I can look around this table right here and I can see several friends that are from the same neck of the woods that I'm from. And I know what our main industry is, and that's farming. I think this goes to more than just farming. I think it goes to the equipment that we use to till the ground and to make our farms and grow our produce and things like that. So I see us, when I say us, I see the United States going to other countries to do the same thing that we're trying to stop them from doing now. I'm sure the American Indian probably had the same idea that you had, you know, but we didn't pay attention to him either. So we just went ahead and took his land. I think we're a part of a global economy, and I think we have to realize that we can't be an isolationist country, that we're going to have to reach out to our neighbors and our friends that are not necessarily on this continent. And because that one of the biggest problems we have is producing enough food for the folks that we have to eat. So with that said, I won't belabor the point, but I can't vote for this. So just so you won't be surprised, Jerry.
Chairman Halsey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think I understand exactly what you're saying. You know, Communist China is not our friend. In fact, even as we speak, they're working for our undoing in this country, and they own the ports in Los Angeles already, the shipping ports. I don't know if you know how many acres of farmland in Tennessee does Communist China own, or do they own any? I don't know, but I do understand what you're saying, that if you get enough foreign folks who buy up farmland in this state, and they collectively decided not to grow anything on it, they could starve us. I understand what you're saying. One of the groups that talked to me yesterday were concerned that you have existing foreign companies that own not agricultural lands so much as a business or a plant, a factory. And they want to expand, you know, for another 150 acres beside them, or they want to expand so they can use that to do research with seeds or genetics on crops. And I don't know what your answer is for that. That's a valid problem with your bill, if you can address that.
Chairman Sexton.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Hulsey, you're exactly right. I don't have all those issues worked out. I would like to start somewhere and bring attention to it. Everyone that has commented on it's made good, valid points, and I don't think that we could or intend to take out foreign interest coming in and working with them. My goal and main objective is that there be some kind of survey, limitations, study done to see where that we are and see if it's something that we feel like that we need to put into law. I want to start the conversation. I think that we need to. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have brought the bill if I wasn't ready to move forward with it. But at least I feel we need to make an effort to start somewhere. And of course, you know, I'm open to suggestions, but I've gotten a lot of feedback from members on the committee that have concerns with their constituents and their business community. And I'm a business person. I own business. I know their concerns, and I'm not unsympathetic toward it. However, I feel like that if we just put our heads in the sands and we just continue going in the direction that we're going, I'm not sure that we'll be able to turn it around somewhere down the road. So,
Chairman Hulsey. Chairman Hulsey, you have any other question or comment?
Thank you. I don't know if you know the answer to this or not. Do you know what percentage of acreage is owned by foreign entities in Tennessee? And it might be worth looking down the road of saying, okay, we can only do this to this point of percentage. Maybe be a solution for you to look at with your bill. But I don't know if you know that number or not.
Chairman Sexton.
thank you, Chairman. First of all, I do not know the answer to that. There was a constituent that brought this bill to me, and I've done sparingly research on it. My Senate counterpart, Frank Nicely, ran this bill a couple of 3 years ago, and I don't really even know the history of it. So, no, I apologize that I don't have that kind of information. I do plan on working on it further. I don't know what the extent of today's outcome will be, but I do plan on getting some of those percentages to see exactly where that we are. And the constituent that brought this to me, in his rural area, in my district, he was just seeing so much of the land being bought up by foreigners that it was causing him some concern, not just for farmland, but just buying up the land, not doing anything with it. So I think, and he's not the only one that I've heard from. So I've gotten a lot of outside of business, the average people of Tennessee, at least that I've talked to, they like this. They want to see some kind of control put in place. And that's who I'm representing, but thank you, Chairman.
Chairman Cochran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Sexton, I was going to say, I understand. I get where you're coming from. I think, I think the concern is valid. You don't want, a foreign entity, specifically, if we're talking about communist China, you don't want them owning large percentages of your food supply or being in control of that. I think there may be a more narrow way that we could do it than this. But I'll tell you the situation in my district. When our largest taxpayer and our second largest employer is a Canadian-owned paper mill. But then not only do they own the mill, they have to own a lot of acreage for their trees, to grow those trees. And so, my concern is the way that this is written now, that could negatively affect them. But I just wanted to say I understand the concern, and I think there's probably maybe a more narrow way that we could look at that. I think one unique thing about, a communist or a Chinese entity, a lot of times the government is involved in the ownership of that company. And so maybe we could look at it from that aspect, as opposed to a German or a Canadian company, where typically, like in the United States, those companies are privately owned. So maybe there's a more narrow way that we could look at it. Like I say, I'm opposed to it this way just because I'm afraid it encompasses my Canadian paper plant. But just want to say I understand the concern and appreciate you starting the conversation. And I think we can look at it in a more narrow, effective way. But I appreciate you.
Representative Hurt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman, I appreciate you bringing this and bringing it to the attention. In our part of the world, echoing my colleague, with agriculture being so big, and then the other factor that's huge for West Tennessee that we're constantly working on and having to work through obstacles is the mega site. And the way this is termed, it could throw a wrench into that, and we have enough obstacles anyway that we're trying to overcome to help rural West Tennessee. But I do think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and maybe there's a way to narrow it down more and accomplish a goal of a concern. I think, and I could be totally wrong on these numbers, but I think to answer my colleague's question from earlier, I think it's somewhere around 2% of the land owned now. Again, I could stand corrected on that. But I did want to say that I'm open to having more conversations moving forward, however that needs to look. But again, we want to make sure we don't throw any more obstacles our way, and I'm going to speak for my district, especially there with the mega site, that any more obstacles to overcome or hamper business development in any way. So I do think there's a fine line there that we can juggle, and I'm open to continuing to look into it to see where that line might be if we can find one. So with that said, and I'm open to the committee, but I would make a motion to move it to a summer study, that we can look into this, we can have some discussion, or however that might look, whatever we can do to continue this discussion, because it is a concern that if we don't address it now, we could look up in 10 years and it's irreversible, and we're in tough shape. So, Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion, and at the will of committee on how they feel about that.
We have a motion and a second for this bill to be studied this summer. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, we'll vote on the motion at hand. That's to send this bill to summer study. All in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your bill will go to summer
May I
study. Yes, sir. You're recognized.
First of all, I'd just like to say that thank you. Thank you for hearing the bill, and thank you for the discussion. I think that is a good result that we could do. It at least keeps the discussion moving forward. So I appreciate you listening to me and the efforts of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next on our docket, we have item number 4, House Bill 887 by Representative Calfee. Do I have a motion on the bill? We have a motion and a second. Representative Calfee, you're recognized on House Bill 887.
Thank you, sir. There's an interest in people going in commerce in our state parks and natural areas with kayaks, canoes, paddle boards. And this has been talked about for about a year or so, and my understanding is that all parties have come to an agreement, and the people wanting to do business would obtain permits, and then the department would propagate the rules and set a fee structure.
Okay, I believe you have an amendment on this that makes the
I do,
bill.
and it's 005221.
Okay, that's what we have, amendment number 1. Do I have a motion on amendment number 1? We have a motion and a second on amendment number 1. We'll go ahead and put that on the bill without objection. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? House Bill 887 has amendment number 1 added to it now, sir, so you can proceed.
One last thing, the department will report to this committee once, not later than March 1st of every year, and the similar committee in the Senate and discuss any changes of procedure or anything.
Okay. Any questions for the sponsor on this? I had one. I wanted to ask you just how broad this is. What kind of businesses, what kind of entities are we talking about, and you know, how far-reaching is it?
Well, what we've discussed so far is what I talked about, canoes, because most of our state parks have lakes in them, and canoes, kayaks, paddle boards, that sort of thing. And we've had a problem in the past with clogging up the boat ramps on the public area. So a lot of these people would like to move into state parks and natural areas. So if there's anything else, I'm not aware of it. Of course, it may bring on concessions and stuff like that. I don't know that, but just looking forward.
Okay. Any other questions from our members on this? If you're ready to vote on this, we'll be voting on House Bill 887 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to full committee, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and members.
House Bill 1585, item number 5 by Leader Camper. We've been asked to defer that to a calendar next year, so without objection, we will defer House Bill 1585 to a 2022 calendar. Item number 6 by Representative Dixie, House Bill 546. I don't see him here. He has the next two. How would the committee like to deal with these? Representative Shaw, excuse me, Representative Reedy.
Yeah, looking these bills up, sir, it shows that they have been general subbed in the Senate.
Okay, I believe you are correct, sir.
And I'll defer for more conversation from my colleague to my left.
Representative Shaw. You just said. Okay. Representative Reedy, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move House Bill 546 to be sent back to the clerk's desk.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Without objection, we'll be voting on the motion to send House Bill 546 to the clerk's desk. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 546 goes back to the clerk's desk. We're now on item number 7, House Bill 562. And I don't see the sponsor here. Representative Reedy.
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 562 has been general subbed as well in the Senate. I move that we send House Bill 562 back to the clerk's desk.
We have a motion. We have a second to send House Bill 562 back to the clerk. Without objection, we'll be voting. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? House Bill 562 goes back to the clerk's desk. Next on the agenda, we have House Bill 1389, and I will give the gavel to Chairman Halford.
Mr. Chairman, you are recognized on House Bill 1389.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have an amendment on this bill, drafting code 5042.
I believe that's correct, sir.
Motion on the amendment. Second.
Have a motion and a second on the amendment. Would you like to explain the amendment, sir?
This rewrites the bill and requires a TASER study for a situation that we've been having with some of our waterways where they're getting overcrowded with paddle sports participants and fishermen alike and others using the waterways, and we've had a lot of complaints. This came up in the last couple of years, and there was legislation discussed, but I think the parties involved have decided that we need more information. There's not a lot of data out there, hard data, so this would call for TASER to give us that data so that we can make informed decisions.
Members, you've heard an explanation of the amendment. Are there questions for the sponsor on the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready to vote on the amendment? What was that? 5042. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Ayes have it, goes to TASER. Oh, yeah. Got ahead of myself there. I have a question on the, question's been called on the bill as amended. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Ayes have it. Full committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item on our bill, on our agenda is House Bill 139 by Chairman Halford. We have a motion, we have a second. Chairman Halford, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this is a result of a committee that I was on, a task force that I was on, named by the governor that recognizes FFA and that association for the good work they do for agriculture and education. It's actually would join the Department of Education and Department of Agriculture together to work for the better good of FFA and agriculture in Tennessee.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll be voting on HJR 139 by Chairman Halford. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Joint Resolution 139 goes on to full committee. Any other business before the committee? Seeing none, this is our last calendar, and I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn to the call of the chair. We have a motion. All in favor say aye. We are adjourned.